Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Agile IT Tech Talk. I'm your host, as always, Sean Spicer. For those of you watching online on YouTube, go ahead and give us a like and follow down below. So I want to give a quick shout out to an unusual group for our usual Tech Talks. My friends, it seems everyone is moving to Teams, and in my own personal life, I've been sharing a ton of our Tech Talks with them as they learn how to use Teams. Some of them are IT admins, and they're figuring out how to set it up. So we've done a number of Tech Talks on user adoption and change management, and today I really want to go over overall Teams administration and governance. So again, this week I'm on a different setup. I've added an extra wide monitor to my big machine. Now I'm presenting on my son's computer, so I have two computers, so I can have two screens, and it's a little bit wonky, so bear with me if the mouse disappears or anything like that. So as an introduction, I want to just discuss real quickly, what is data governance? And a lot of people make the mistake of thinking that data governance is just slapping some data loss protection policies on top of their information, and that governance is more about security. But governance is actually a five pillar process of data availability. So is the data available to the people that need it? Usability, is it in a format they need it? So, I mean, technically you can have data on a pile of Post-it notes in the back of a 17-year-old file cabinet, and you still have data. So is it usable? Consistency, is it consistent? So you always hear that phrase, the single source of truth. Now, being in marketing, I'm very concerned about KPIs, and I need to have certain numbers. And if I pull the numbers from different places, a lot of times I'll have inconsistency. So it's important for us to establish that single source of truth, and this is where we pull the number every time. And therefore, across a period of time, we don't have fluctuations that we can't explain. Data integrity, is it free from being corrupted? So is there, are there checks in place to make sure that things aren't being edited or changed in improper ways? And finally, data security, is it secure that it won't be deleted, that it won't be corrupted by malware or ransomware? Is it secure that it won't leave your tenant with somebody who shouldn't have that data? Now, for the purposes of this demo, when we say governance, we're discussing the process of planning and executing Teams deployment across an organization in order to promote those five main concepts of availability, usability, consistency, integrity, and security. For Teams, it involves three main areas. So your group and team creation, naming and classification, group and team expiration, retention, and archiving, and then Teams feature management. And spending some time investing in Teams government pays dividends after adoption, including a smoother rollout, better user experience, and fewer help desk calls. And my hope with this Tech Talk is that it proves to be valuable, whether or not you've already deployed Teams, whether you've been on Teams for years, or whether you're looking at rolling out into Teams. I have a number of friends that are in the initial pilot stages, and I think this is going to be really helpful for them. But I also think it's going to be helpful for our clients that are in Teams, and maybe give some insight into things they could improve in their environment. So as always, we are going to be working in a demo environment for Contoso. This time it's Contoso Electronics. And in this case, we're going to pretend to be Alan DeYoung, their IT manager, and he's responsible for deploying and managing Teams throughout the organization. And he has to ensure a smooth and rapid adoption and make it possible for all of their employees to use Teams effectively. So to that end, for this demo, we'll be using administrative tools including Azure Active Directory, PowerShell, the Office 365 Admin Center, the Azure AD Admin Center, and the Teams and Skype for Business Admin Centers to govern the rollout, deployment, and features of Teams. Now, each of these admin tools has its own scope of control and degree of flexibility and granularity. And the tools that you'll use will depend on your specific needs and requirements, but we really want to cover all of them, at least across the surface. So, for example, we can control guest access in Teams at the directory, tenant, and application level in Azure AD, or just the Teams level in the Teams Admin Center. On the other hand, we can use Azure AD Admin Center to set team expiration policies and Azure AD PowerShell to create and enable team naming policies. So Teams provides governance tools, pardon me, to implement policies and permissions for creating, naming, and classifying teams, and for controlling who can use them. So let's look at a few of the key areas that you must consider before deploying teams. So group and team creation. Teams is one of several Office 365 services built on the Office 365 groups framework. And when someone creates a team, an Office 365 group is created as well. And we go into much more detail on this in our compliance in Teams Tech Talk. And I'll put a link to that in the YouTube description as well as on the blog for this. So by default, all users with a mailbox in Exchange Online have permissions to create Office 365 groups and therefore a team in Microsoft Teams. So this eases the burden on admins who might receive hundreds of requests to create teams, but it can also lead to some issues like team duplication or inadvertent deletion of teams and content. Um, so if you want to have tighter control and restrict the creations of new teams, you can delegate group creation and management rights to an Office 365 security group in the Office 365 Admin Center. It's important to note that team yields the most benefits when there is a good balance between allowing end users to create the teams they need while restricting an uncontrolled rapid increase in the number of teams created. Severely restricting the creation of teams is not recommended. So for example, here's a Teams governance security group that Alan has set up previously. It consists of users we want to grant permission to so that they can create new teams. This should provide the needed balance of productivity and security without negatively affecting productivity. So let's manage who can create teams. So with the security group in place, you can use Azure Active Directory PowerShell to configure these permissions. This is the how-to article on setting up a security group and assigning members of that group's permissions to create new teams. So after running these steps, only members of the security group can create a new team in Teams. And this will have all of the steps in it. And I will, of course, have a link to it. These are always wonderfully long links. So these restrictions can be removed later if necessary. Pardon me. So by default, anyone who creates a team can name it whatever they wish. However, with proper controls, this can lead to organizational headaches. So for example, suppose your company has marketing groups in three countries. We've got, or three continents. We've got US, Europe, and China. And let's say Megan Bowen, our favorite employee from the US, creates a team and calls it Contoso Marketing. Well, what happens when Europe and China's marketing departments also create teams and calls them Contoso Marketing? Now the company has multiple Office 365 groups, all with the same name, along with their Office 365 groups and SharePoint site collections. This can be confusing. Defining a team naming convention can benefit the organization greatly. In the above case, we could limit team names to look like Contoso Marketing _ US, Contoso Marketing _ Europe, Contoso Marketing _ China, and we can enforce consistent naming conventions for teams, and we can set up a naming policy for our tenants using PowerShell. So for example, we can use prefixes or suffixes to communicate geographic regions, and the example we gave a minute ago, the function of the group, its membership, or who created the group. And these are your prefix suffix naming policies. You can also create a list of blocked words that can't be used in a team or group name, such as payroll, CEO, HR. And the reason why you would want to do that is because those are going to be those really low-hanging fruit if somebody does get into your environment and is looking for very sensitive places to try to do a lateral expansion into. So after we set a group naming policy in Azure AD, when a user creates a group in an Office 365 app, they'll see a preview of the name according to your naming policy, with prefixes and suffixes as soon as the user types in the group name. If the user enters blocked words, they'll see an error message so they can remove the blocked words. So this article, and again, I will have a link to this, shows on how to enforce the naming policies for Office 365 groups. So let's go for the X1050 launch. So each team created in Teams automatically comes with this Office 365 group that has configurable status, so public or private, and optionally classifications, which are labels that administrators can use to create policies for retention and other content requirements in Office 365. Again, we go really deep into this in our Compliance with Team Tech Talk and talks about automatic label applications in terms of data loss protection policies. So we're going to go ahead and edit the team. So for example, right here in Teams, we can allow users to set public, internal only, and restricted on the teams they create. And then we can set classifications. Excuse me. So setting up a classification scheme requires Azure Active Directory PowerShell. Once the classifications are configured, users will see an option to classify the team they create by editing team details. So we've previously used PowerShell to create a data classification system for Contoso's teams. And here are the classification settings and explanations. And so here you can see under classification, you've got the 3 different options. We don't want to change anything right now. So let's talk about team expiration, archiving, and retention. Now this is definitely an important part of data governance. So as the number of teams increases, it can create a bit of a mess. For example, when a project is completed, but the team in Office 365 group is still hanging around. So Microsoft Teams will show team owners when their team is going to expire. That is, if they use the Office 365 group's expiration policies. So you can manage the life cycle of teams by setting an expiration policy in the Azure AD Admin Center. And here we've got group lifetime in days. We'll set a team to be 365 days. So once you set a group to expire, owners of the team or group are notified to renew the group as the expiration nears. So this isn't just oh, your team is going to disappear, you're going to lose all your data, your teams are going to be frustrated and angry. They're just going to get a notification, hey, are you still using this team? And we'll see what that looks like here in a minute. So enable expiration for these groups for selected groups. And we're going to go ahead and select the Office 365 groups. Let's go ahead and do that for business development. Let's do that for feedback and electronic events. And we'll set that up. So any team or group that is not renewed will be deleted, and any Office 365 team or group that is deleted can be restored within 30 days by the group owners or the administrators. Again, we're not trying to kill data here. We're just trying to make things a little bit easier to manage, particularly in a large organization, or actually any organization where you have somebody like me who just wants to create groups to try things out. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and discard. We don't want to change this right now. And let's go back to that launch team. So team owners can also archive a team when it's no longer active, but they want to keep it for reference or to reactivate in the future. This is really, this has been great for us for events. So for example, we have events that come around every year like Microsoft Build, Business Application Summit, Inspire, and we will archive our conference communications groups and then bring them back and reactivate them in the future. Once that event is approaching, we have new people that are going to be going to the event, and that's where we really organize and figure what we're going to be doing once we're on the ground. So, excuse me. Here you can see you've got all the different options, and right here, if you have the right permissions, you can go ahead and archive the team. You'll need to be an owner. So the conversations in files in the team will become read-only once they're archived. Users will still be able to search through it for what they need. So that'll be surfaced within the team search panel, as well as the Bing search for enterprise function, as well as through SharePoint searches. However, all team activity is frozen once the team is archived. No one can start new conversations. No one can reply to posts in a channel. They can't add or remove channels, edit team settings, or add apps. team owners will still be able to add or remove members, update roles, and delete or restore an archive team. And that's all explained here in this pop-up. We don't want to archive it right now. So let's go to the Admin Center. So let's go ahead and go to Security and Compliance. And we're going to show how the Microsoft Security and Compliance Center is going to enable data governance. Very easy to find, and let's look for retention. So for most organizations, the volume and complexity of their data increases daily, sometimes exponentially. You've got email, you've got documents, team messages, sometimes integrations, all kinds of things that you have to manage. And having labels really makes this a lot easier to manage. So to manage or govern this information as it's built out with and created within your environment, it's important because admins need to comply proactively with industry regulations and internal policies that require them to retain content for a minimum period. This may be FINRA, it may be the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, it may be HIPAA, and these things may require you to retain certain types of content for 7 years. You can reduce the risk in your organization in the event of litigation or a security breach by permanently deleting old content that your organization is no longer required to keep. This is also important for HIPAA, where there's only a certain amount of time where you can keep specific information. And this also helps organizations share knowledge effectively and be more agile by ensuring that their users work only with content that's current and relevant to them. So with Teams retention labels and policies, admins like Alan can decide proactively whether to retain content, delete content, or both. So to retain and then delete the content based on time. Now, these policies are applied by using content labels that can be either auto-applied or applied by users or managers. Let's look. So here we can review the labels for content that contain personally identifiable financial information, PII, such as credit card and bank account numbers. This is really cool when it's fully set up because you can keep your users from ever sharing information such as credit cards or social security numbers, insurance claim numbers based on the formatting. And you can use regex, regular expressions, in order to create these. Again, we go deeper into this in other tech talks. It's a little bit out of scope for here, but let's go ahead and look at the retention here. So if a new retention label and policy is needed, we can create a new one. And here you can see, I love that, enter a friendly name and descriptions for users. Cancel. So let's look at how we can manage this through Microsoft Teams and Skype for Business Admin Center. So we can also have meeting policies, and meeting policies are used to control what features are available to users when they join Microsoft Teams meetings. So let's look at what the global defaults are. So we can use the default organizational-wide global policy, or we can create one or more custom meeting policies for people that host meetings within the organization. The global policy has default settings that many organizations would normally use right out of the box. If you create a policy with custom settings, you can then assign specific users to the policy, and you can do that by user or by groups. So general meeting settings cover areas such as Meet Now, allow the Outlook add-in, channel meeting scheduling, excuse me. So we've got all of these settings, and then the audio video settings include transcription. This is really nice when you're using this in conjunction with Microsoft Stream. If you're recording your meetings, we do weekly brown bag sessions, which we then put up into Stream, have transcripts that are searchable within our environment. Do we want to allow cloud recording, IP video, and then the media bit rate of these recordings, and also what's being transmitted over the internet. And then the content sharing settings include your screen sharing, giving and requesting control, sharing a PowerPoint deck, and a couple other settings. Whiteboard is really fun. I strongly recommend if you want to start using whiteboard, practice a few times first. I've had some really awkward moments where I couldn't quite figure out how to do what I wanted, but it's a really powerful tool. Um, and finally, participants and guest settings. These include dial out to add other participants, whether you can dial out into other organizations, enabling any user to start a meeting, and then automatically admitting participants. If you've been involved in meetings with Agile IT and you're outside of the organization, you know that you get set into a lobby first, and that allows us to discuss things beforehand without having suddenly someone jump in and hearing us saying, oh, you know, there's going to be this problem. And so it is really nice to have that lobby where you can let everybody in at once. Much like what I do with Tech Talks, where I'll sometimes be in the session 15 minutes before getting things set up, basically cleaning out my virtual meeting room. But we don't want to change any settings now. But let's look at what a new policy would look like here. So an existing policy can be changed or saved, and you can also start a new policy from scratch. And you have all of these settings here, and you just give it a title and a description. And again, all the settings are here. Again, we're not going to do that. It's going to take too much time. But let's go ahead and look at meetings. And let's look at live event policies. So with Teams live events, your users can broadcast video and meeting content to large online audiences. And again, here we have global. We can set up policies for individual users and groups. So live events bring live video streaming to a new level, encouraging connection throughout the entire engagement lifecycle with attendees before, during, and after events. And live event policies are used to manage the event settings for groups of users. So we can use the default wide global policy, like we're seeing here, or we can create new policies and assign them to individual users. And live event policies contain the options for allowing scheduling, so which enables users to schedule a live event. If this is turned off, nobody can schedule live events. Now we can go ahead and set who can join scheduled events. So everyone in the organization, or specific users or groups. And if it is set to everyone, then these can be publicly facing. So recording settings, do we want to always record? Do we want to never record, or just meeting organizer only? So the organizer can set to record. Again, we're not going to change any settings. So let's look at the messaging policies here. So messaging policies are used to control what chat and channel messaging features are available to users and teams. Let's again look at the global settings. As in the case of meetings and live event policies, we can use this global policy, or we can create one or more custom messaging policies for people within the organization. And this is, again, ties into your Office 365 groups. There are a number of options in messaging policy, including whether owners or individual users can delete or edit a sent message, as well as enabling read receipts. And these can be, user-controlled settings, and whether those read receipts are enabled for everyone, or individually user-controlled, or disabled for your entire tenant. For Giphy content rating, in case you didn't know, Teams has the ability to automatically search for GIFs, and you can set your Giphy content rating to strict, where you're pretty much going to be limited to Sesame Street and very work-friendly. Moderate, where you may have, kind of a little bit of snark, and then no restriction at all. I strongly recommend against no restriction at all. We had that for a while, and there are some pretty fun GIFs, to say the least, within Giphy. And then do you allow memes in conversations? URL previews, where it will automatically give a snippet as well as a thumbnail of anything posted from a URL. And then do you want to have stickers? Now, the memes is really fun, and I just found this out about maybe 4 weeks ago. There's a meme generator right within Teams where you can do your standard, like upload an image, put your Arial black text top and bottom, and immediately post it to Teams without jumping around. And it's been really fun in our water cooler channel because we're able to make memes that are very, very specific inside jokes, as well as to celebrate things that are happening with our engineering team and with our support and services team. So it really kind of brings that personal communication in. Now, I would recommend setting a policy with memes and gifts that you might want to limit it to where it's not in the all company or it's not in information specific teams and channels. So let's go ahead and create a new policy. So the global policy bars owners from deleting sent messages, but it also allows users to delete or edit them. Chat, GIFs, memes, and stickers are all allowed, as are UL previews and translations. All right. So this was a real quick overview of the different tools that Teams makes available to implement any governance capabilities your organization might require. Again, I really want to call out the tech talk we did with David Branscombe, where we talk about the Office 365 security and compliance substrate. And in that, what you've got to consider is that everything that happens in Office 365 generally happens within SharePoint, within Exchange, within OneDrive. And knowing where things are, and I'm currently working on a book that describes all of the functionalities in Teams, as well as the structural organization and architecture of Teams and where things live. So in this demo, we reviewed how an admin can set up options in the governance areas of team creation, naming, and classification, expiration, archiving, and retention, and then feature management across channels, teams, and then for individuals within your organization or groups. Taking the time to set options and policies for teams that meet your specific needs for an organization will pay huge dividends along the line, including strong and smooth adoption, consistent team naming and life cycles, and improved data security. All in all, this is about reducing your IT overhead and making life as simple as possible for your admins. So that's it for this week. I did want to keep this one short. Last week's session on Microsoft Vendor ATP, I think, ran to 50 minutes, and I wasn't able to talk for about 2 hours afterwards. So thank you very much for joining us. If you are watching online on YouTube, a reminder that Agile IT Tech Talks are a service for our MSP and CSP clients who are, after the session, are able to ask live questions and discuss and get real answers about their environment. However, we do make the demo sessions available on YouTube. Give us a like and follow. If you have questions, feel free to ask them in the comments down below. I will be posting a number of blogs around our Teams videos over the coming weeks as I work on this book. My goal is to have a book up on Amazon probably in December, but the book will be finished and online digitally in October. And this is going to be like the old Excel Bible. We really want to cover every functionality of Teams. So again, thanks for joining us. Give us a like and follow. Stay safe out there, everybody, and have a great week.